So next year the piano will just be part of the circle instead of outside the circle. April and Mary and Mariah need to face us, not turn their back to us. And so we thought about 11:30 or so they want to join us as full participants and have something in mind for us. So the question when we drew these pictures yesterday was, in drawing the pictures, where did it take us that we couldn't have gotten there without it? And so as this methodology of communal transformation or education that restores our humanity, which is the task we have, this is the project we're engaged in, is how do we educate? If the purpose of a community is to raise a child, which it is, then we have to restore. This is what the major project is how to restore the humanity in a world hell-bent on performance and producing low-cost workers for our corporations. So art's a part of that, and that's wonderful. So I wrote something this week. I want to share this. This is the height of arrogance, is to read to you something from my own writings. It reminds me of Joel Barker once. He's a very famous consultant. And I'm capable of arrogance, as you might have suspected. And I once saw him give a talk in which he had PowerPoint on the wall of his own quotes. You know, life is what you make. This is him talking, Joel Barker. Life is what you make of it. Joel Barker, 1987. And so I always had it in mind to do that. You know, let's break into small groups. Peter Block, 1976. So this is a small version of that, whatever you imagine.
Can you get that on the wall over there?
What? Break into small, Peter Block, 1976, yeah. I was an innovator of that intervention. So here's the way I make order out of an experience like this. This is what I spend my life trying to do. And somehow if you can make order out of it, if you can name it, it gives you access to it. And I can take it with me. It's an answer to sustainability. And part of this that's in this language of the room is, well, what we're doing is creating an alternative narrative for what education can become. So I like the thought that all transformation is linguistic, that my transformation is my adopting a different story, a different narrative, a different constellation. I looked in the skies and I saw moments of my experience like stars, and I tied them together and gave it a name. And so in some ways you came here to reconstellate the narrative you have about yourself, A. So if you say your job is to, in the return, is to get complete with this experience, which we'll let you do in a minute if I stop talking. Part of it is I need to reconstellate or rename the narrative that I am living now. Now, the other thing is a communal narrative. So you come here to create a narrative of what education can be. And I think that's what Ward is ushering us into. He's our messenger. He's taking us across the river into hell and back. Who's the oarsman across the river Styx? Hermes? I don't know. So we're here to create a communal narrative. So let me give you some elements of what I think the communal narrative is, of the new narrative for education. So one, and this comes out of the work in Positive Deviance that some of you, there's a wonderful book called Positive Deviance. It's really interesting. So here's what they did to change social systems. First, they looked for signs of health. All right, now this is in healthcare. So they looked for the gifts. They looked for what was working instead of what's not working. The second, they decided to listen, that listening becomes an action step. Most people in education are busy teaching, busy talking, and so they go into a community and they listen deeply, and they listen for what's working. They listen for people who on their own have figured something out that works in a desperate situation. So when Jill goes into that part of Watsonville that everybody has as a problem story now, right? Jill doesn't go there with Watsonville as a problem story. She doesn't go with her classroom as a place where kids can't learn. You go and find little spots where insight, learning, grace, generosity exist. And it's always there, even in the most difficult neighborhoods. The other thing about the new narrative is leadership plays a minor role. That every narrative I know of real transformation, leadership was irrelevant. Top management wasn't needed. All we need from top management is to not really get in the way. We don't need their support. We don't need their vision. We don't need a laminated statement of the future. That all real transformation starts in the middle or the bottom. So that's what I'm interested in. It's a peer-based learning process. I know that if you got anything out of these days, now we all did our part, but it's from each other because we're the real, this is what Ward is giving voice to. It's the class with each other. And so what people came for, they'll find from peers, not from leaders, not from experts, not from those who know, who have been around, not even from elders. What the elders do is let us know that it's possible to live a long time and not get too discouraged. That's my gift to the next generation. He didn't die too depressed. Everything else is... So here's some more thoughts, and then I'll stop. One is everything's organized around choice and invitation. So that's what I want to read to you. The thread in all reform is initiated by choice and invitation. It holds deep respect for the present existence of local wisdom. That real reform is neurotically wary of experts under any disguise. All right, even people who stand up and say we're going to break into small groups. They allow for local customized solutions which take advantage of the variability of what it means to be human. So instead of consistency and control, I'm interested in exceptions. The real reform comes from people who have given up on their ambition, who realize their future's behind them. At those human level, these reforms are initiated by people at the stage of life where they have given up on ambition. They're people in midlife, in age or spirit, who reach the point where they're ready to look far outside what they were conditioned and trained to find. So I can't reform whatever I'm into from thinking that exists within that medium. You have to go outside of it. And the other thought, and then I'll be done, is that community is it. That without connection and community, what Ward is giving us with this 2 days as an example of, is what does the landscape and texture of a communal experience look like? And whether it's a circle, whether it's the room, whether it's a structure, whether it's letting light in or art in or music in, whether it's hearing from people, whether it's doing the exercise yesterday. And so basically what you're here to invent is what a community feels like. And like I said yesterday, the inside out, I've given up on that. I've been working on the inside, and it's doing as good as it's going to do, and I'm all for that. But it's outside in. I need a community around me for me to live out, find my voice, find my legs, do what I came to do in this world. And I think that's the real reform. And then the last thing is about the restoration of humanity. And what that really means is that reform has to accept the fallibility in each of us. That what steals my humanity is my perfectionism, my not wanting to get it wrong. And that's the thought. And I like that. I like the idea of the restoration of humanity, and Ward and I were talking this morning, this is hot off the press. Maybe that the purpose of the school is to teach the community how to rediscover its own humanity.